Good afternoon and welcome back for the very last time this year to the TaxCalc Power Hour. This is your chance to pick up tips and tricks on how to use TaxCalc more effectively, to ask questions of our expert team and to help to get input from all of you. I am joined once again by Nick Moss, our training and customer and onboarding team here in TaxCalc, and also by Dani Darcy, who is our head of key accounts, both of whom are experts at TaxCalc and able to share their best practice with you. How have you been, guys?
Yeah, it's been great. Gearing up for the December and January, the Christmas rush.
What's been anything particularly keeping you busy? Making anything?
Not particularly. No, literally just full steam ahead on training sessions and demos. Really,
get head down.
Pretty much, yeah. Nothing special going on whatsoever.
In and out the workshop.
How about you, Dani? You've been
busy few weeks.
Yeah, demoing to a lot of customers.
Yeah. And looking forward to the Christmas break, I think.
Is that coming? Is that happening? I didn't.
For me, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't know about you, Andy.
Looks like Christmas is indeed coming. So, as promised, we are indeed going to do a quiz today. We've got 10 questions to test your general knowledge about tax and accounting, throughout which we've seamlessly woven some TaxCalc power using gold. See if you can spot it. And we do have prizes. Dani, what have we got prize-wise?
We're giving away today, for 3 worthy winners, a TaxCalc fleece. Beautiful fleece, lovely and warm. We all wear it, don't we, all of the team?
Genuinely, these are staff exclusive.
They are usually.
We're quite, but they get fought over. So if you can win one of those, and I think we're going to have a couple for the quiz winners. We've got a special prize, right?
Yeah, we thought we'd have a special prize for the person who shares with us the best tip or trick that they've learnt using TaxCalc and shares it with the rest of the group.
Yeah.
So that's sort of been the premise of the Power Hour sessions for the last few months, and we thought that would be a good reason to share a prize-winning fleece for the winner.
So we know out there that there's some of you have got little tricks where you're thinking, I wonder if anyone else knows this. I do this thing. Throw it out there. Let's see. You might win. You might win a fleece. Okay, so before we start, I did want to make a couple of comments about the Power Hour. So we launched this back in June because we realised that there were a lot of our users out there who might be missing out on some of the functionality that they do, in fact, have access to. We've had some wonderful feedback from our Power Hours. A lot of you have written in to say that you learned this or didn't realise that it could do that. And my favourite one is the dual screen. I love the multi-window mode, and most people didn't know about that. The cog as well. Who could forget the cog? That's gone down very well. So, but we do need your help. We're going to be doing TaxCalc Power Hours throughout the rest of next year, and we don't know what you don't know. So, if there's anything where you feel you want us to cover more, anything where you think there must be a better way of doing this, throw it to us and we can work on that and we can include that in our next Power Hours. So we do need to know that. So let's get to it. Let's start the quiz. Get ready. We're going to use the chat. It's going to be first answer in the chat gets the point. Although if any of the previous quizzes are anything to go by, it'll get chaotic fairly quickly. But bear with us. We'll have some fun. So question 1, and get ready on the chat because, as I say, first question first. I need to put my glasses on for this. So by the end of January 2001, which was the first year for electronic filing for self-assessment, how many individuals filed in the online gateway in that 1 year?
In the first year. The
first year, yeah. So by January 2001. Answer in the chat. Ooh, Tony. We're going to see.
Numbers are a bit high, actually, guys.
You're going quite high. We've got
a right answer, Andy.
Oh, we have.
Already.
Who's been Googling? There's so many coming in, it's hard to keep track.
Oh, my word.
It's really hard to keep track.
Let me scroll down. I'm pretty sure it was Robin.
Was it Robin?
I think Robin might have gone with the correct answer. Yep.
Now, Robin, if you knew that, you should perhaps get out more. But congratulations. The answer is 38,000. Only 38,000. Last year was 10.2 million. So it's obviously it's quite popular. The online filing gateway, isn't it?
It is now,
people
yeah.
really enjoy it, so they've done well.
Must be working.
Yeah. So well done. So that was Robin. Point for Robin.
Yep. Okay.
Make a note of that on your notepad.
I will. Yeah.
Question 2. How many personal tax returns have been filed using TaxCalc in the past 12 months?
I think we'll go the nearest with the scenario. If they get it spot on, it's a bit weird.
If someone gets that spot on, I'd be very suspicious about
yeah.
or which company they work for. So so I want a number. How many?
Sarah's closest so far, from what I can see. Oh, there are so many answers coming in.
Oh my word!
It's really hard.
Oh my word!
We should have thought this through, shouldn't we?
Thought this through.
Make a note next time. Think it through.
Barra is currently the nearest. Oh, Mark. I'm going to give it.
I think we need to go with first answer.
I'm going to go give it Mark. Mark Threlfall.
Mark Threlfall.
I'm going Mark Threlfall.
What did he get? I've lost his.
Mark went with
1.4. Yeah.
1.4 million. The actual number was 1,407,698 tax returns in the past 12 months have gone through TaxCalc's hallowed halls. So well done. So that's one for Mark. Well done, sir.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Okay, so as I say, we've seamlessly woven, and see if you can spot the join here between the quiz. But Nick, we've just had some questions there about individual tax returns. You've probably got some tips for our viewers, right?
I've got one or two. We did a power hour last month with Dean Shepherd, who works in our product team as well, who went through a few areas of the personal tax product that in I'd say really deep dive personal tax points. But I'm just going to highlight some of the areas that Dean mentioned last time for the people who weren't able to join. But also you might not remember it from last time. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen coming through any second. You should recognise this. I make this joke every single time. You should recognise this. If you don't, I think we need to have a quick one-to-one session. But effectively, if I open up Practice Manager and open up one of my clients, Chris Kringle. Once you've got the client open, you are able to click Andy's favourite use, the cog in the top right-hand corner. You can then open in tax return production, and it would then open up Chris Kringle's 2023 tax return. So in the personal tax return product, there's 4 areas that I just want to make sure that people are aware of that TaxCalc can help them with. So in the other income section on the left-hand side, and under savings and investments and shares and unit trusts, what you can do in here is if I click the little magic wand on the right hand side, I think our developers were trying to be quite funny when they put the magic wand. So what that means is there's a wizard behind it. So if I click the magic wand, what you can have with TaxCalc is an integrated dividend database. And this dividend database holds the FTSE 350 and I think the top 100 AIM list of companies. So what you can do in here is if you type in maybe a company like Shell, it will show me all the dividends that were paid by Shell in the tax year to April 2023. So if I then put in here that they own 1,500 shares of Shell, you can see there, these are the dividends that were paid out if I own 1,500 shares in Shell. Click Auto Post. That would then post 1,500 shares holding to Shell with those payments in there. I appreciate I've got a lot above me in the list there, but I always forget to remove them in previous demonstrations. So over time, that is going to be an infinite list of dividends. But effectively, it will then keep hold a 1,500 shareholding of Shell every single year rather than having to add it in every single time and remember it. It will keep that 1,500 shareholding in there. So having that detailed dividend database means you're not going to have to wait for those specific dividend vouchers to come through, okay, from your client. The next thing to show in the personal tax products would be the summary. So I appreciate that all of you are probably aware that TaxCalc does prepare for you an SA 302 summary, and I'm sure you do give this to your client. Whether your client understands it is a different question, I'm sure. But effectively, this will give your client all the detail relating to the payments that are required relating to that tax period. But there's one report in here which got a lot of brilliant feedback from Dean's session last month, which is the variance report. Because what the variance report gives you is effectively a 2-column report that shows what's in a current year's tax return compared to the prior year. but it also shows it as a variance, as an amount, and as a percentage, which you can click on the blue hyperlinks on the right hand side to go to that particular section if you want to go and review it. For example, you can see for my dividends, there's a 94,000% increase in dividends. That's probably something that you might want to be aware of or notify your client and say, hey, are we sure about that? And so if I click go, that would take me to the same place I was before. But you can click preview and print in the bottom of here, and it will then produce it in a nice PDF savable format for your client to have. You can also click add to e-sign envelope in the top right hand corner, and I'm sure we'll get to e-sign at some point today, but you can click that button and it will take you into the e-sign product to send this alongside potentially the actual tax return for signature and SA3 summaries, anything you want. So that variance report really did get a lot of positive comments from Dean last year. Okay, last month, should I say? Last week. What am I talking about? So other things to mention in here would be a tax bundle. So if you want to produce, say, a group of documents to send to your client, like I said, either through e-sign or potentially send it through email, you could go to print or paper file return on the left-hand side. And what that does, it takes you to this particular section here. So it says, what do you want to print? And you tick the relevant documents you want. Now, the one which is in here is, do you want to include summaries? So if you tick that little box there, it then asks you which of the summaries that we saw on the left-hand side there do you want to include in this bundle. So, for example, I want to include a cover page, I want to include the SA 302, I might want to include my UK property other rentals, my limit on income relief. I'm not sure if I've got any on there in this particular demo client, but if I tick those boxes and then click create preview, it will produce a bundle of documents as a PDF for me to save down and either send externally or send from within TaxCalc. And you can also mark it as sent to client at this point in time from your work statuses. And you can see here, it then produces a nice straight PDF document for my client at this point in time. Again, if I scroll down to the bottom, appreciate this is just the large tax return, but then you can see there's my cover page through to the SO302 and then the summaries that I ticked at this point in time.
Nick,
so,
sorry, just to jump in, there's a question that's come into the chat from Chris Smith asking, can you tailor the variance report?
So the variance report is as it is, unfortunately, Chris. So that is literally a document that is produced as you can see it, but it says that alerts are based on the de minimis settings under personalised tax code. So if you want to change what's on that variance report, if you don't want certain things, you can click that blue hyperlink and it will take you to the place to go and customise what you want on the report. But we kind of give you as much information as we would expect you to want on there, Chris. Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
So after the tax bundle, the last thing to show you, and I say it every time, but it's one of Dani's favourite bits in TaxCalc, and it's the what if planner. Because Dani is always talking about how the practices that she looks after think about tax planning and advisory work for some of the clients looking towards next tax year. So if I go to the what if planner at the bottom down here, what it can produce is a projected calculation for the next tax year relating, but using the figures for my 2022-2023 tax return that I filled in for the live tax return here. So being able to pull that through, I can then say, actually, I've had a chat with Chris here, and next year he's going to earn £85,000, and he started up a new self-employment at the North Pole, and he's got a contract from Ocado. He's going to start delivering that for the rest of the year when he's got all that time. Let's say he's going to earn £150,000 from Ocado. Once you fill that in, plus any other additional information which is different, projected to be different last year than this year, that then flows through to the face of the return here. Yeah. Also, you could then fill in any deductions that are different next year compared to this year and extend the basic rate band. Also, for example, you can edit the CGT information here. For example, if he was looking at selling one of his properties that he makes all the toys with at Christmas. So you can effectively produce two different calculations. One if he was to sell a property, one if he wasn't, which then gives you right to the bottom the information which your client actually really cares about, which are the projected payments on account based on the information that is filled in above. So the What If Planner is a really helpful tax advisory planning document that you can go through with your client, potentially on screen if you're sharing it with Zoom or if they're in the office, and effectively give different examples of scenarios that particular client might have.
Yeah, and it's really quick to produce, isn't it? So you don't have to spend hours and hours doing that prep work before you go into that client meeting. You can have that prepared in a couple of minutes, knowing that you've got something to talk about when you go into that client meeting.
Absolutely, and then, as Dani mentioned, if you then want to make any slight quick changes to that, it's very easy. Click the blue button, make a change, and it flows through straight at that point. You would then be able to click preview and print, and then that produces it in the same format and style as their SA302 from the previous summary that we saw before. So again, your client is not having to kind of reread or re-understand a particular document. It's shown in the same design and format as the other document that they will be expecting to receive every single year anyway. And as we'll get onto later, you would also be able to add this to your e-sign envelope later on as well, potentially send it out to the client.
Sorry, Nick, again, just before we jump on, I missed a question from Tom Bickle earlier. Can you export the variance report through to Word or Excel?
Good question. That's not something I've tried, Tom. So let's have a look.
Let's try it live.
Yeah, there you go. So you can. So if I go to the variants and go export to Excel or Word at the bottom, next to preview or print, yep, you'll be able to export this to Excel and play around with it, add additional comments. Yep, absolutely. So thanks for that, Tom. You've highlighted. That's a tip that I think is currently maybe the first one in the chat that we might have said that I didn't know about, exporting the variance report to Excel to play around with it.
Robin, who I suspect is just a troublemaker, has asked, she said, please can we have some kind of summary report that just lists all of the incomes, so all of the sources of income just on one return, but with the caveat that in a nice way that clients will understand.
In a nice way that a client might understand, I think was the question.
Yes.
Yeah, Robbie's caveated that quite heavily. Yeah. It's definitely something we can take away and take to the product team afterwards. There's a few members of the product team in the chat today, so they will be reading your comments and taking them away. So yeah, absolutely, it's definitely something we can take away and look to potentially implement.
Right, okay. We'll keep an eye on that, Robin, though. Suspicious. Anyway, right, thank you very much for that. And please don't forget, if you've got any tips that you feel when I do my, I'm producing accounts or whatever, that you might have a little trick, please do send that in. You could win a hoodie. So, next question, let's move on. We're on question 3 now. It's neck and neck at the moment. It's very tight, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got Robin and Mark so far with a point each. Question 3. William Martin Smith was the first person to be issued with a national insurance number in 1911. What was it?
Are we needing the number?
We need
the national insurance
the national insurance number. Now, this is a kind of, it's going to be a complete guess, or you know it. And maybe Robin knows it.
I'm hoping Robin does.
So, yeah, the first national insurance number to be issued in the UK in 1911 was, we've got, who was that? It keeps moving. Who was the first person to get it?
I think Robin, but I wonder whether Robin's Googling.
I think Robin's Googling. It was Robin as well. So the correct answer, everybody, is A1. So that was how original they got. I'm not sure what kind of computer system they were working on. It's probably Windows 3.1, I think, when back then in 1911. And they produced the national insurance number A1. Well done.
Well done, Robin. Either, Robin, you're very quick to type into Google and to find the answer, but fair play. If you can find the answer that quickly.
There's a definite get out more issue, I think, going on here.
I also spotted a comment from Keith saying, can you show the multiple screen again? Yes, we absolutely will do, Keith. That's our favourite thing to demonstrate.
Just to comment that, Alice, who I've done some work with before a few months ago, she also requested that, and I said I would show it, but I forgot already. So I will definitely show it in the next session. Okay. In the next bit, Keith and Alice, don't worry.
Fantastic. I will. We'll look forward to that one. But we've got to go question 4 first. Question 4.
Before you move on, Andy, I wonder whether we put a ban on the Googling of the questions?
Yeah, if anyone's caught Googling, they will have their practice
license. I feel like otherwise Robin's
going
to win this as a landslide.
Yes, they will be removed from practice. And we can do that.
We have the power to do that.
We can do that, yeah. I'll just press that button there.
The big red button.
I won't press it. No Googling. Right. Okay. So, question 4. In their 2021 to 2022 annual report, HMRC suggested that they have reduced their average hold times across the UK. What do they claim in minutes is the average hold time to get hold of HMRC? Go.
The answers do come in quite quickly.
They do come really quick. Definitely need to think this through. We definitely.
Oh, I think I've seen a correct one. I think.
Have we? I saw one. I mean, please don't think that this is in any way scientific. This is. If you've seen Have I Got News for You, this is the kind of scoring that we're working with.
We may not even remember by the end of the quiz.
We won't even remember. I think we've written a couple down. I think there was one. Was it Heather? Did Heather get there first? Heather Barnes?
Oh, that's the name I
The
saw.
troublemaker Heather Barnes? Heather Barnes? Correct answer. It was 13 minutes. HMRC claimed
Well done,
to
Heather.
have reduced their wait list to 13 minutes. So this is where I really wanted to bring in a shoehorn because we're talking about support there in that question. But Nick, you've got some points about people who want to access our support, don't you?
Yeah, so I've got a few ways that I can show you in terms of logging support tickets the most effective way. Of course, we still have telephone support, so feel free to log as many calls through the telephone system as you like in that way. But there are a few more efficient ways that we can basically know what your issue is before we need to give you a call back. So you're kind of directed down the right route to start with. So if I share my screen again at this point, I can take you through how to log support calls through the system. As I mentioned, telephone support as well. You can still send an email to support@taxcalc.com as well. So if you'd rather do it that way rather than telephone, you can. But you can also log support calls through TaxCalc itself. So if you are in the product, no matter which section of the product you're in, you can go to Help at the top and click Contact TaxCalc Support. So if you click Contact TaxCalc Support, you put your name in, your phone number, and what the problem that you've got is. We will then know. Now, the for attention of that box is if you've got a contact at support that you've had for example, you've been going back and forth with a particular piece of work that you needed assistance with, please just put that name in the box so it gets directed specifically to the right person. But you put your problem in there, click send, and then we receive that through our direct channels in the support box. Now, another thing you can do is if I go open up Chris Kringle again and open up Chris's tax return. Let's say I'm having some trouble with a particular tax return. You'll be able to go to Help at the top and Send Return to TaxCalc. So if you go to Send Return to TaxCalc, it will actually attach a copy of the tax return at the point of sending it across to us in support. But bear in mind, it will send that tax return anonymous. So we will remove any identifiable names of employers, businesses and names so that we will not know the actual individual themselves, unless you untick that box. But I think it's very rare in a scenario you wouldn't tick that box. But again, just put your name and your issue and we will be able to answer that. But also worth noting with the time of year, support is obviously a key factor of using software like TaxCalc. So I just wanted to make you aware of the out of hours software times. So if I tell you that on every Tuesday and Thursday from the 12th to the 21st of December, we will have email and telephone support between the hours of 7 o'clock and 9 p.m. These support times, by the way, are just on the TaxCalc website. If you go to taxcalc.com, they are still listed there if you don't note these down. Between Christmas and New Year, from the 27th to the 29th of December, we've got 9:30 in the morning till 5 p.m, but that is email and in-app support only. Telephone support is not available between Christmas and New Year. In January, support is available Monday to Friday from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. And again, that is email and telephone support. But also from on weekends, it is 10 till 4 email and telephone on a Saturday, email and an app. When I say email, I mean app as well on Sundays. So you can still get support throughout January. At the weekends as well, but also on the 31st of January we have email and telephone support up until 10 o'clock at night. So if you have got any issues at that point, you are still able to contact TaxCalc and we can help you in app, over email and on the phone. Okay, so please don't think that it's out of hours. TaxCalc won't be able to help you. We are running consistent out of hours support to assist you through the busy tax season. So please do get in contact with us. We have lots of elves in the support team to be able to help you through that time of year.
They are, yeah.
But what I will point out at this point before I forget it again and get in trouble with someone else as well as Keith and Alice is I will show the multiple window mode that is your favourite part, Andy. So if I share my screen again, I will show how to split the screens to multiple windows. So this was also a point that I think, Andy, you mentioned it to one of the accountants at Lorraine that's done quite a bit of work.
And Tom as well, Tom Bickle, I mentioned it too, and he was very excited. Very excited.
So if I show this
these
function,
are users that have been using the system for a little while and weren't aware. So if you don't know how to do this already, guys, you're not the only one. We won't hold you to it, but it's worth us showing you now.
Absolutely, and bear in mind what I'm going to show you today, because I'm only able to show you one screen, it's going to look a bit weird and you'll think, why would I want to do that? But in reality, when you've got multiple screens, this will be really helpful. So let's say I'm working on accounts production and I'm working on one of my clients, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Limited, and I'm also working on their tax return. So I've got the accounts production open. I could then go and click the cog in the top right-hand corner. I'm combining multiple windows and cog for you, Andy, your two favourite back-to-back. You can then say open in tax return production and open up then the 2023 corporation tax return. And once you've got both of these open, I appreciate you can flick between the two very easily on the tabs at the top. But if you go to Windows as one of the buttons at the top of TaxCalc, you can then have multiple window mode, which will then open up corporation tax and accounts as two separate windows. That means you can spread them onto two separate screens, and they are still connected. So if you're updating accounts production, that could then flow through and update corporation tax. And if you post the tax journal from corporation tax back into accounts, that will still update that as well. So, and once you're happy, you don't need to worry about closing these. You can then go to Windows, single window mode, and that will pop them back into the same screen and in the same order that they're in at the point of popping them out. So yeah, the multiple window mode is really popular. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's a part of the system that not many people know is there, because you probably don't think to click the Windows button at the top.
It's the most boring of all menu titles, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yeah.
It's the last one that you're going to drop onto. We've got a whole bunch of questions, and Dani, as master of chats.
Yeah, we have been fielding them. I think thank you to Martin and Ben, who are from our product team, who are in the chat answering questions as well. So I think we are covering both. There's a question that came in from Susie, asking whether you can separate out from the tax summaries when you're sending via e-sign. So I wonder if we can cover that when we talk about e-sign and sending the envelopes out.
Yes.
Some people have some issues with Fetch. Now, obviously, Fetch is an HMRC service. We just kind of connect to it. But has that been happening a lot out there? A few people have mentioned that they're having some issues with Fetch. It's a bit out of our control.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that people are having issues with HMRC Fetch, because that data is being driven from HMRC, unfortunately. But that information, as Andy mentioned, we have no direct control over. So we always recommend that even if you are using Fetch, which I always recommend, Dani would recommend to our clients as well, please still do check that information you believe to be correct. Don't take it as gospel. Please do check that information is correct that's coming from HMRC. So yeah, we'd love it to work perfectly. We'd love it to have more and more information, but yeah, we're dependent on what HMRC make available to us to connect to the personal tax product.
Yeah, so I think it's just one of those things. But if you call them up, they will answer the phone within 13 minutes. Let's not forget. But anyway, good. I just wanted to bring up the support team, because they are wonderful, wonderful people. They are all dressed like this at the moment. But if you've got any messages, if you've used support and you've been impressed by support, drop a little message in the chat and we'll pass that on to them, because they love to hear nice things said about them.
Absolutely.
Don't talk to them though. Anyway, right, let's get on to question 5 now in the quiz. How many measures for growth did Jeremy Hunt announce in the recent autumn statement? There were a number of specific measures for growth. Don't know if you could spot them all.
Oh, straight on.
Who did you spot, Nick?
I spotted Sarah Solo.
Sarah. Oh, good, Sarah. Because Sarah's been pretty consistent with the correct answers over the last few months. Well done, Sarah.
Sarah, did you count them? Did you watch the whole thing and note them all down? But well done, Sarah. Excellent. You're fantastic. We will make a note of your point there. Okay. I'm going to get the shoehorn out in a minute, but question 6. When was the first recorded Christmas card sent? In what year was the first recorded Christmas card sent?
We're sort of ducking between Christmas questions, tax questions.
We are. There's a reason for this.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a reason for this. Okay. No. So I haven't seen the correct answers yet.
We're going to need to go earlier.
We're going to need to go. It's going to go way back. Way back.
To be fair, I don't even know the answer, Andy. What is the answer on this one? Have you got it?
Well, I'm not going to tell you. No, you put your answer in there.
We'll let you know if you're right.
You might win a hoodie. We haven't had an answer yet. We haven't had a correct. Come on, everyone. You can just.
Should we give a ballpark?
I'd go back. It's think.
Deborah's a little bit early.
Is anyone going to get spot on?
Yeah.
1066.
Mark's gone for
Mark is a
1066.
bit early.
You've
like
got
you thinking,
almost
James.
the right numbers there. I'm going to give you a clue. It was the 1600s.
Are you expecting someone to get it exactly? Andy, is that
Well,
what
I
you're-
think we're going
Is
to give up.
enough?
I think Sarah. I'm going to give it to Sarah. I'm going to call it. I'm going to give it to Sarah. Sarah,
Well done, Sarah.
got it right. It's actually 1611 was the date, and it was from a guy called Michael Mayer, who sent a Christmas card to King James I of England. How nice? You didn't last much
Nick's
longer
guess
than that.
was 2009, just for reference.
It's when I sent my first one. That's when I sent my first one.
So 611, well done, Sarah. Okay, so there is a shoehorn attached to that question because signing Christmas cards, it's not something that we necessarily all need to do anymore, is it? We've got a better way of doing it.
Yeah, we do have a nice way of doing it. And the reason why Andy has shoehorned that question in there is that on the last power we did, e-sign was the one area that people wanted, mainly showing what it does, but also I've got a few hints and tips for people who are existing users of that particular area. Nice little hints and tips showing you ways to maybe use it slightly better than you were aware of. So if I share my screen again at this point, I will take you into the e-sign product. And Dani, if I forget to mention it, because
And just to clarify, Nick, it was that Susie loves the summaries, but can the summaries be added separately to the SA 100 when e-signing, so that the client hasn't got to go to the bottom of the tax return before seeing them? So explaining the process there.
okay, yeah, brilliant. So I'll be able to do that, but if I forget, because I'm terrible at that, tell me, okay? Yep. So if I go to the e-sign center and click launch, what this would do is it would show me all of the envelopes that I've sent out previously. You can probably guess which client of mine I use either demonstrations or training to all our customers. But what you can do is when you do have one that's been completed, you have the ability to save the signed documents to a location of your choice. So please do, when an envelope has been signed and all the documents are in there, make sure you save it just so you've got a copy of it outside of TaxCalc if you ever need it, right? Of course, they can stay in there for as long as you want, but save them outside of TaxCalc just so you've got the copy in the client folder, same as everything else. But in terms of actually putting documentation in a folder, in an envelope to send to your client for signature, or a Christmas card in Andy's case. So if I go to create new envelope, and the client which I'm going to use is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Limited, it will ask you for a name of the envelope. So I'm going to call mine Accounts and Tax 2023. And you can put a description in that box if you wanted to, but more often than not, that's used for internal purposes more than anything else. But you can put a description in there. Now, I would expect you to apply a password to the envelope, okay? I can't apply a password to my envelope here because I'm in a demonstration version of TaxCalc. But what I would expect you to do is to either put a client record password on that particular client, if it's specific to that one. For example, if they wanted Rudolph123, you'll be able to click the client record, and it will take you to the passwords option right at the bottom of the Practice Manager taskbar on the left-hand side to put the password that's specific to that particular client. Alternatively, if I come right back to the home screen and then click on Admin Center and go to Applications on the left-hand side, and then e-sign and PDF encryption at the bottom, what you would then be able to do is to put a default password for your practice in TaxCalc. Now, what this default password means that if there is not a password on the client record, it will default to the one which is set up on this particular section of the system.
Worth doing, I think.
Definitely, yeah. If you're going to use e-sign and want to use passwords, please make sure you have a default password set up so you're not running the risk of potentially sending it out to the client by mistake. So you can see here I've got UTR number, I've got national insurance number or company registration number, or the client code. UTR number is by far, I would say, the most popular choice for our customers, even though sometimes if you use UTR, your client doesn't know their UTR number and feels like they need to open up the document to find their UTR number to get into it. It's a bit of a cycle for some customers, but again, it depends what your preference is for your particular practice and what's right for them. But again, they're the three that we wanted to use in there. So you make the choice. Now, if I come back to the envelope.
Sorry, Nick, just before you move on from the passwords, Robin said, how secure is e-sign? Is it more or less the same as an online hosted site? E-sign is secure because you're password protecting the document that's going out to the client.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's technically a third-party piece of software called Signable. okay, which is effectively an equivalent of the likes of something like DocuSign or Adobe Sign, which you might have used potentially before. You're looking at the integrated one in TaxCalc. But yeah, it is a fully secure, password protected document. As long as you're not sending within the email the password to open your document is XYZ, it is a secure way of sending documentation to your client. There's no way which it can get intercepted in that scenario. Okay. So once you've set up the envelope in terms of giving it a name, recipients, you would choose who do you want to receive that particular envelope with documents within it. And you can see here I've got Merry Christmas and Chris Kringle. Now you can choose that for Chris Kringle, I want him to be a signer, but then we also have the option for watcher. It's a bit of a funny terminology, watcher. But what that means is a watcher will get a copy of the document within the envelope once everything has been signed. So for example, if you've got say 5 company directors, 2 people sign the director's report and balance sheet, the other 3 just get a copy of it when it's been signed, you would put those in as watchers in that scenario. But it automatically fills in the recipients in that scenario based on your client record. But one of the tips that I recommend in here is you have the ability to click add user in the top right corner to add someone in internally to potentially sign the document. So you can see here, if I scroll down, I do have Dani Elf Darcy in my database to be able to add Dani in as a signer, potentially for Dani to sign the accountant's report. So it would go to Chris Kringle to sign the director's report on the balance sheet, and then it would go to Dani to sign the accountant's report. So it's a nice way of doing it rather than thinking, oh, the client signed their bit, it's a bit of a faff to then get the practice to sign their bit. Just add someone in internally to move it throughout that process. Okay. The reminder options down here, you have the ability to set a reminder every 24 hours, every 7 days, but in a specific time, the lowest you can set it is 12 hours. Any less than that, I think the client will get massively frustrated, but every 24 hours or every 7 days is the general norm. Okay.
And that reminder is actually really helpful because it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, but also I know that if I was to receive an email at the wrong time of day and I didn't have the time to look at it or action it, it would be helpful to have a reminder a couple of days later, maybe even a day later, and then it would probably land at a time that I was able to action it. So those reminders are really, really useful. Absolutely,
and it's actioned by the system. It's not anything that TaxCalc has to request. Yeah, the user or TaxCalc has to request for it to send the reminder. It just automatically produces that for you at the point of sending it out. Okay. Then when I go to signing order, it will then choose what order do you want the document to go through. So obviously in this scenario, I would want it to go to Chris before Dani. So I choose Chris there, and you can see here that Merry Christmas is going to get a copy of it once it's all been signed. Apply the email template. It will say your company name have sent you a document signed online. You'll be taken to your website to sign the document. If you have any questions on signing, do not hesitate to get in touch. This white bit, you can add additional sections in here. You could say Merry Christmas, and that would appear on the email as well. Kind regards, name of the practice. But it's this manage documents section where you would be able to click add TaxCalc documents to add in the relevant documents that you want your client to sign at this point in time. So I will want to add in, if I make this a bit wider, just for my screen's quite small at this point, I should use my mouse, that might help. And then I could choose the CT600, I could choose the full account, and I could choose the registrar set. So if I click add documents there, and it will then convert them to a PDF and add them into this section. Now, in my preference, I like to have the full accounts first, then the registrar, then the tax. So you can just drag this one up to the top, and that will then change the order. You also have the ability to upload a document from the outside, potentially a bill you want to put in the same time, or potentially a cover letter. But also, this is what we would do. I can't remember who asked that question. Sorry, Dani. About the summaries.
I was going to come on to that one, but also Sarah said, can you set up a template covering email to go with e-sign to tell the client their liability and the information to make this payment? You could set up a cover letter, couldn't you? Or a letter explaining that. You could also get the client to sign that letter, which probably sounds a bit odd, but then at least you know that the client has opened that letter, seen that letter, acknowledged that letter, and then you've got an audit of that, an audit trail, a record of that.
Absolutely. So yeah, as Dani mentioned, what I would do is I would have on the client record a letter, a mail merge letter set up in the background of TaxCalc that will pull that information, for example, payment on account information, into the body of the letter, and then add this into the system via the upload function once you've converted it to a PDF, and save it into this envelope, and then just drag it to the top. So that is effectively your cover letter with then the documentation that you require your client to sign, and then potentially a bill at the end. You could also do that with the summaries that was mentioned there, where you'll be able to export the documentation or the summaries out of out of TaxCalc and then upload it. Or alternatively, if I very quickly go back into tax return production, so if I go back into Chris Kringle and then go to the summaries, so for example, this SA302 summary, when you are in each individual summary, you have the ability to add to e-sign envelope at this point in time, which means that they will go in as individual documents rather than a massive bundle that you might not like that I showed you earlier. So effectively, and then you'd be able to sort the order in the envelope itself, as I've just shown you there. So like I say, it's broad as it is long. Some documents are a bit easier to actually go to the compliance product itself and click add to e-sign envelope at this time, but some are easier to go to add TaxCalc document. Now, what you can also do, I appreciate this is slightly different because it's a multiple director limited company, but if it was a single director limited company, it would also make sense potentially, as well as sending the full registrar and corporation tax document, you might also want to attach the personal tax document, the SA100. So you would be able to click add TaxCalc documents here, and in the drop down box, you would be able to pick the director themselves and then potentially add the SA100 for the tax period in at the same time. It will then convert that to a PDF and add it into the envelope.
So Samantha here, Samantha Samuels made a really good point. She said that she adds a sign and date box at the end of the tax return so that they know that they have seen the payments that are due and the SA302. That's a great thing because from a user perspective, every document that has a signature on it needs to be opened, doesn't it, before you can send everything back. So in terms of a process for the user to go through, they're just going to show up on their phone or their laptop or their computer, and then they're going to basically work through all of those documents. So like you said, having the covering letter as that first document that they see, they'll have to go through and acknowledge that they've seen every single document that you've sent them.
Absolutely. So yeah, Samantha's made a great point there, and you can always add that onto your template, whether it's on your bill, add it onto your final page letter. Just make sure that signature section, it's nice, easy with a bit of a line underneath it. I'll show you how to drag and drop where the signatures appear. But having that as an actual signature document on the end, so the client has signed it and knows what they're signing up for at that point in time, is really helpful.
Elizabeth Wright has asked, would it be possible to send sensitive documents to a person who is not a client, which do not need a signature? For example, sending client tax returns to a new accountant for handover.
But yes, I believe so. They would have to be in the system. They have to be in the TaxCalc system, right? As a contact. But yes, you would be able to send documentation to those individuals. Yes.
There was a few others, or do you want to?
There are a few.
We may run out of time. That's my own.
Yeah, I'll just finish. I'll finish this demonstration on e-sign because there's a few more questions obviously to get through. But yeah, with e-sign, it's personal preference in terms of how you actually want to use it and what documentation goes in. I do massively agree with Samantha's point that she had there in terms of adding a signature thing. But certain people might not want that, right? It's practice preference, but if you can have a standardized process for your practice so every single client knows what to expect every single year, depending on what you send through, it will make everyone's life a lot easier. But if I share my screen again, at this point, I would then be able to, on the left-hand side, select the set of accounts. So you can see for Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer, I've got my client logo. So on a set of accounts, you can add your client logo and your practice logo on the face of the account, which is quite nice. But once you find the sections that you want people to sign, for example, my director's report here, I can drag and drop a signature there on the right-hand side into the area where I would like them to sign the relevant section. So again, but then I've got the accountant's report. This is where I choose Dani Elf Darcy at this section and drag the date in here and drag and drop as and when I need them to sign the specific sections. Click on the next document. If I then drag and drop here, so the balance sheet, I'm going to drag and drop that there. And again, you could drag and drop throughout, okay? The reports, this envelope history report, if I find one that I've already sent out, so for example, this one here, the report is a full fingerprint history report that shows you every single time one of the recipients has viewed the envelope or signed a document. So for filing online to HMRC or filing online to Companies House, having proof that they have electronically signed that document is massively important. So this envelope history report is stored in TaxCalc alongside that envelope for future viewing if and when you need it. Okay. But if I come back to this envelope in here, once you go to check and finish, everyone remembers check and finish. It's the best part of TaxCalc in general, particularly in the compliance products. It tells me that everything that I've entered so far seems correct and I have no problems. You then just click send envelope and that would then send it. Okay. It's worth noting that to use the e-sign facility from the client's end, it is fully compatible on a computer, laptop, tablet and phone. It's perfectly fine, dead easy for your client to use. If anyone wants to see basically an end-to-end demonstration of it from the client side as well, please do log a call with your account manager. If you don't know who your account manager is, please log a support call and we can get you in touch with your account manager who can book that one-to-one demonstration in for the e-sign envelopes. But yeah, hopefully that should assist you in how to get Christmas cards signed.
Yes. I'm so glad you shoehorned that in. That was outstanding bit of shoehorn action. Thank you. So we've got about 15 minutes. We're going to rush to get through to the rest of it, unless we may run over in case people want to cover the last bit. But let's crack on. So back to the quiz, back to the chat. So question 7 in the quiz. Class 2 national insurance contributions will be abolished from April 2024. But in what year did they first commence? When was the first Class 2 national insurance? What year is all I'm after. Karen's done well. Come close. Mark.
Mark's bottom.
Is it? Have we had Mark already? Mark Twinbarrow?
No, different Mark.
Different Mark. Multiple Marks. Mark Twinbarrow, first one to get in 1975. And there were different rates for men and women back then. Okay, question 8. We've got another shoehorn question coming up because we had a lot of queries about a certain subject. Luco, I'm going to pronounce this badly, Pacioli, is credited as the first person to codify the double entry system of accounting and bookkeeping. When was Luca born? In what year was Luca Pacioli the originator of the double entry accounting mechanism? Here they go with the numbers. Mark Threlfall. That's a 2 to Mark, isn't it?
2 to Mark.
2 to Mark.
Mark's
He's
done very
on
well.
fire, this guy.
Yeah,
or he's
absolutely.
good at Googling.
We're never going to know, that's the
I
problem.
suspect he's good at Googling. No, it was 1447. And we like Luca, don't we? Because we met him.
We did meet
The other
Luca
week.
face to face, didn't
Yes, we were at the Luca Awards and they very kindly voted TaxCalc as their favourite tax and accounting software, and we were awarded somewhat spooky looking.
It was strange,
strange.
but it was nice to win it.
It was nice to win. It was a great night. Love
thank
those
you to anyone
guys.
that voted for
Love
us.
the ICB.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the shoehorn there is that we were talking about bookkeeping and we were talking about how bookkeeping and TaxCalc interact. There's certain things that we can do. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. So with accounts production in TaxCalc, we have direct integration with 3 cloud bookkeeping softwares. So I appreciate that at your practice, you might have a favourite one, but you might have the odd client that is on one that you probably don't like to use particularly often. So the 3 that we can directly integrate with are FreeAgent, QuickBooks, and Xero. Okay, and that is not just one-way integration; it's 2-way. So what I'll do is I'll show you how you would go about the fact of linking your client's bookkeeping system into TaxCalc Accounts Production. So if I go to Accounts Production in the top right corner and open up my client Rudolph again, open up March 2023, and then on the left-hand side, I've got postings. So by clicking on postings on the left-hand side, I appreciate that you'll all be aware of the new batch function on the left-hand side to maybe type in trial balances or post journals. You can utilize the import trial balance on the left-hand side to import via a third-party bookkeeping system, which would be FreeAgent, QuickBooks, or Xero. Now, if you choose Xero, what it would ask you to do is to enable 2-factor authentication for your user. That's a security requirement that Xero require. But if I choose QuickBooks at this point, which doesn't require it, I can then click continue, and it will then take me to my QuickBooks login with my email or user ID. Whether that's your practice account or your client's account, it doesn't matter. Put whichever one it relates to, and it will then connect the 2 systems for 3 months. Okay, so it should give you enough time to pull the information through, complete your account, and then push it back. That 3 months is decided by all of FreeAgent, QuickBooks, and Xero. Unfortunately, we can't link it together for longer than that. But once you pull that information through, that will then come through into TaxCalc. And then you're able to make your adjustments, such as corporation tax adjustment and accountancy accrual. It's worth noting in the last update with the corporation tax adjustment, we were able to update that adjustment that if your client has S455 tax, it will also push back the S455 tax alongside the corporation tax amount back into accounts production. So you see if I open up this journal here, you can see it's also pushed back the S455 tax adjustment alongside the actual corporation tax amount as well. But once you've made those adjustments in accounts production, you want to potentially push that back to the bookkeeping system, you would select the adjustments that you've made, click export journal left-hand side, and it would then push it back to the system that it's connected to already. So basically having those 2 connected for those 3 months in time means that you're not going to have to produce an adjustment journal report to your client, which you never really like doing. You give to your client and you never know if it's ever going to be posted correctly. If you can own that process in as little as 2 or 3 clicks, they will much prefer that. Okay, so please do utilize the trial balance import link between the client's bookkeeping system and TaxCalc. Another thing, just to make you aware in accounts production, because when I've been speaking to customers of TaxCalc, they didn't know this was even possible from Companies House, never mind the ability for TaxCalc to produce it. But it's the ability in the account setup function on the left-hand side and going under accounts presentation and financial statements, it's the ability to file revised financial statements online. Companies House opened up an additional API earlier in the year. We added the functionality in June this year to give you the ability to actually file accounts online through TaxCalc to Companies House, not HMRC, by ticking this box, and you can file it either by a revision by replacement or revision by supplementary notes. And by doing that, straight away on your reports for, say, your revised full financial statements, it will update your accounts to mark that they are revised on the face of the accounts. So, and then when you file it as normal, you can file it straight through to Companies House from TaxCalc, but I appreciate that a lot of people didn't know that was even possible. So yeah,
They
just wanted to
didn't.
make a point of that.
Excellent work. Thank you. We're getting some good top tips through.
We are. I do want to see more,
You want to see more?
if I'm being honest. Maybe as our Christmas present to us.
To be honest, Siobhan has gone for one.
Siobhan's from our team, so I'm not sure whether Siobhan's...
You don't count Siobhan. I'm sorry.
I like that Siobhan's sharing. I won't ever
I think
stop
she's
someone
trying
sharing.
to win the hoodie. But Tom Bickle, if you're setting up a client on software, e.g. Xero or QuickBooks, set up their chart of accounts. Now this was an issue. Set up their chart of accounts in TaxCalc codes, and it makes life easy when you come to import into TaxCalc. So he's saying use TaxCalc codes from the start.
Yeah, and then to be fair, if it pulls through, it uses a mapping document just to pull TaxCalc to TaxCalc. So that does make it a lot easier. That's spot on. Also, some practices do that for, say, Sage Line 50 ones as well, because when you don't have, say, an integration into TaxCalc, rather than having to create a Sage Line 50 mapping document to get from Sage Line 50 to TaxCalc via a CSV file, you can just use straight TaxCalc to TaxCalc and it fires straight in. So some practices, as Tom's mentioned in there, I had a good chat with Tom the other week actually, that you could update the Sage Line 50 nominals or Pegasus, and that's an old one, or Pinnacle or whatever, and then to pull it through into TaxCalc is much easier in that scenario.
Is there any risk of doing that, Nick? Or?
Not particularly. If your client uses QuickBooks or Xero themselves, they might like particular nominal codes. But if you explain why you're doing it, I'm sure they'd be fine. But no, not particularly.
Okay, brilliant. Sarah's also added a top tip: adding yourself as a watcher. I think you might have covered that earlier, Nick. When sending out an e-sign envelope, and then you're going to receive an email notifying you that it's been signed by the client as soon as it's been completed.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Brilliant.
Great tip.
Wonderful. Right, we have a few minutes left, so let's get to the end of the quiz. We have a couple more questions. So question 9, how many agents have registered for an agent services account with HMRC since they were introduced back in 2017? This is a geeky question. You know who gave me this? Dean. I'm sorry, it's Dean.
That should have been another question. Who gave you this question?
Who gave me, yes, where did it come from? This is based on a Freedom of Information request, so you can't Google this. You've got to guess how many agents registered for an agent services
I need to check
account.
the answer so that I know. Okay.
There's the answer there.
Oh, we've got some big numbers.
Some big numbers. 850,000. Good Lord.
Oh, Peter's not far off.
Yeah, I think we haven't got the time, so we're going to call it for Peter. Peter Poyades. The actual answer is 47,000. Peter was closest
Well done,
first
Peter.
before we ran out of time. Told you it'd be chaotic, didn't I? Well done, Peter. Okay, question 10, last question. The Joint Stock Companies Act of 1844 allowed companies to be incorporated by registration rather than royal assent. But when did the modern Companies House first come into being? So Companies House, as we love it now, came into being as a self-funded agency of the DTI in... We'll go for the year, and if we have a tie break, you've got to get the month as well, but that really is asking quite a lot.
While you're giving answers, I think Tom Bickle has given what I would class as probably my favourite top tip, mainly because I was about to show it next
Ah.
and last.
And he's
Oh, well.
stolen your.
And he's mentioned exactly what I was about to show as my final tip before we wrap up the power hour.
Okay, so
so I think my favourite top tip is what Tom has just mentioned that I'm about to show.
All right, well,
So
let's do
we'll
the
get to
answer
that.
to the question. And have we had anyone come up with, I lost track of how many answers we've got. Definitely think this through next time. 1988 was the correct answer. It's October 1988 of all things. So did anyone get that correct? Who's the closest? We've got a 1993, a 1983. Tom got 1984.
Heather's 1986, I think. So that
All right, Heather, go on. Give Heather the point.
Yeah, Heather gets the
go with
point.
this. We had some
Well done,
wild answers in there, going back to the Middle Ages in some instances. So, okay, we don't have many more minutes, but hopefully you'll stay with us if we go a few minutes over, because Nick is about to hit us with a little review of Companies House Forms and Companies House Advanced Integration.
Yeah, absolutely. This is. I'm not going to call it Nick's tip. I'm going to call it Tom's top tip.
Tom's top tip.
Tom's top tip. So, Tom's top tip to finish off the power hour for this year. If I share my screen again, this is our Companies House Advanced Integration. This is included if you do take our unlimited Companies House forms, but otherwise it is a separate module in TaxCalc. What it allows you to do is, if I go to Practice Manager and find a limited company in my system, for example, Waitrose, what I normally recommend when I'm onboarding customers to TaxCalc is that what I'm about to show you here is carried out every single time a piece of work is about to be started for accounts production. So the books have come in, you're about to start the accounts, you right-click on the client record and choose Sync with Companies House. What this does is it brings up a pop-up box where it shows me if there's anything that's in your local data in TaxCalc differs to what's at Companies House, and that includes usual year-end, confirmation statement dates, SIC codes, their registered office. This was quite funny because when I always use my dad's company when I'm using this from a demonstration purpose, and it actually highlighted to me that his registered office was incorrect. He moved accountants 3 years ago, and the new accountant hasn't changed the registered office. So it was useful in my personal life. Never mind actually at TaxCalc. But what it also does, it shows you that in this circumstance, I've got Michelle Barangier and Sharon White in my database as directors, but Nishpank Kankiwala was added into Companies House as a new director on the 1st of May 2023, but isn't in my system to pull through as a director. So what I will be able to do is mark them as a new contact, create and sync, and it would then pull that information through. So if I then click Finish and Open, it would then open up Waitrose. I could go to Relationships, and it says Nishpank Kankiwala was added in on the 1st of May 2023. So it allows you to pull that information straight through from Companies House into TaxCalc, and that is from existing clients of yours to right-click and sync, but also the ability to go to Practice Manager, create client and contact, choose limited company, and if I go to search Companies House and type in let's go Tesco. Yeah, and let's choose this one, whatever Tesco Aqua GP is. Gives it a client code and click Create. It will then be able to pull through, say, company information from Companies House straight into your local data at this point in time, including directors. So rather than having to type all this information one at a time, you'll be able to pull it through by click straight into the TaxCalc database. So yeah, I would say that's my top tip in TaxCalc to finish for the year, alongside Tom. So yeah, thanks Tom for pointing that one out.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Right. Okay, we've come to the end of the quiz. We hope you enjoyed that. And I think we're going to say, so Mark got 2 questions, Heather got 2, Sarah got 2, and Tom won, I think, the bonus hoodie there. So we will be in touch with you guys and let you know. We're going to need to know what size you're after, and we'll get those to you. We may not get them by Christmas. Okay, so thank you so much for everyone for turning up and supporting us and supporting each other throughout this year and the Power Hours. Few announcements before we go. I wanted to first of all thank John. John is our crew who is behind the scenes, and he is basically the elf that runs all of the machinery that makes all of this possible. So thank you so much, John. It's wonderful to have you. You give us a lot of support. A few notes about next year. First of all, after all of the feedback that we've had this year. It's been absolutely great to hear how much you are enjoying these and you're getting out of them. We are going to schedule these for the rest of next year. They will take place on the last Wednesday of every month, except for January. We're not going to start until February. So we're going to start in February. There'll be the last Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. And really just so if you're going to go on holiday or have a baby or something like that, you can schedule it around so you don't miss the power hour. We are also announcement, not the power hour, but the webinars that we do. We are going to be producing them in podcast format. It doesn't really work for the power hour because there's so much demo that you need to be able to see, but we're going to be producing the TaxCalc podcast. Keep an eye out for announcements around that next year. And we are back on the 14th. I believe Sharon is watching today. Sharon Cook from 2020 is joining us. So Dean and I and Sharon will be talking through the conundrum of cash accounting. So the announcements that came out around HMRC's desire for all small sole traders and partnerships to move to cash accounting as a default does throw up quite a few interesting questions. So come and watch that on the 14th, Valentine's Day, 2 p.m. We'll be sending out some announcements around that, but put that in your diary. In the meantime, thank you so much, Dani. Thank you so much, Nick. You're staying in that for the rest of the day?
I think I might need to be cut out of it,
right?
and being totally honest,
Yeah.
Andy.
We should dress up next year.
We should. That's a good idea.
I think people would enjoy
That could be quite fun.
But listen, wishing you a very, very happy Christmas, a wonderful New Year. Thank you all very much to everyone from here at TaxCalc. Thank you.